In today's video, I have a very special treat for you. I'm going to be introducing you to Akeem Shannon, and he's an inventor. He was actually a college dropout that ended up national network television show Shark Tank and launched his product, sold his company, and now he goes around speaking on some of the biggest stages in America, inspiring other people. And this is his first trip to the South Carolina Lowcountry.
First time.
So I'm going to show him around, and you're also going to get to hear his story. And at the end of the video, if you stay till the very end, you're going to get his take on the Lowcountry and what he thinks about it. So
I'm excited, man.
you excited for a fun day today?
Yes, let's go.
All right, so stay tuned. We're getting after it right now. So Akeem, this is the first spot on our tour. So we're here in Bluffton, and this is the Church of the Cross. And this actually dates back to the 1700s. This is the oldest building in Bluffton, and this is where it all started. So Bluffton started out as a little fishing village right here on the Maye River, and it's just exploded from there. So this is kind of the origin of Bluffton. And so that kind of leads me to my first question for you.
Yeah.
What is your origin story? Like prior to the flip stick, which is the product that you invented and sold, where did you start? Like who were you before the entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, my story really started out of failure.
Okay.
You know, I had a full ride scholarship to study chemical engineering, went off to Washington, D.C. to go to Howard University, and then I failed and I had to come home. And it was one of the hardest moments of my entire life. You know, being an only kid, it was like, you got to start over. You let down your family, you let down your parents. And when I came home, I made myself this promise. I said, you know, I don't want to be a failure.
Yeah.
So I promised myself that by the time my friends graduated college, I wanted to be at least making more than the average college graduate. And I think at the time, maybe it was like 35 grand, 40 grand, something like that. And so over the course of the next few years, I had a few different jobs. And by the time my friends were graduated college, I was making nearly 6 figures a year. I had saved up nearly $100,000, and I become the #1 sales rep at not one, but 2 Fortune 500 companies. And so like coming from really, really low and lifting myself back up to a point where I felt confident about who I was, like I think that ultimately gave me the confidence to go out on my own and do everything else that I did from there.
That's awesome. Well, last thing I want to show you while we're here, this is the Maye River. So this is the crown jewel of Bluffton. This is what Bluffton is known for. And this is also kind of what the whole society of Bluffton revolves around.
And what are they fishing? Like, what are they getting out of here?
So this is a saltwater river. It's fed from the ocean, so it's tidal. It goes up and down several times a day. And the big thing that comes out of here is the oysters. And we're gonna see the oyster factory in just a minute, but Bluffton folks are very proud of their oysters. And during the winter time, like right now we're in December, and they have these big oyster roasts. It's a big social gathering where people gather in people's backyards. They have bonfires, they roast the oysters, they sit around, drink a few beers. It's really cool.
Wow, nice. Listen, now I need some oysters.
Yeah. So Akeem, we're at our second stop here. We're still in Old Town Bluffton, and this is the Arts District, and this is kind of where Bluffton started also. You've got all these little houses that have been converted into art galleries, and so this is kind of the hub of creativity. They have the Art and Seafood Festival down here. You've got the Society of Bluffton Artists building right here. You've got Pluff Mud Gallery over there. There's pottery studios, so it's a very creative scene here. So speaking of creativity, tell me about how you came up with the idea for the flip stick.
So, you know, I'm not an artist, but it kind of was a little artsy of a project, I feel like. So it started with a late night phone call from my uncle, who's an engineer at NASA, and he was telling me about this adhesive that NASA was using back in the 70s that was based off feet of geckos. And so it's this like reusable, washable, cleanable adhesive that can hold a lot of weight. And I recently mounted my TV on the wall, and it took me a long time to find the studs, if I'm being honest. And so I'm like, man, if I had this adhesive, I could have stuck my TV on the wall instead of having to mount it. And while I never mounted a TV with that little adhesive, I did figure out a way to do a flip stick, a little phone accessory that allows you to stick or mount your phone to any flat surface. And so once I came up with the idea, I literally cut it out of cardstock and double-sided tape, made it, and I had always heard like stories of like the guy who invented GoPro, how he literally just took a camera, duct taped some acrylic around it, shipped it off to China, said make it waterproof, and he came up with this billion-dollar company. And so I basically did the same thing. I took my little arts and crafts project, I filmed it, I sent it off to a couple factories in China, and a few $1,000s later, in a couple months, we had our very first prototype, and that's how I ended up launching the business.
That is so cool. All right. So Akeem, this next spot I want to show you, this is the Bluffton Oyster Factory. And this, you can see the boat here, and you can see these boats right here. They actually go out and pull these oysters by hand off the oyster beds. And I told you that Bluffton is very proud of their oysters. Yes. But these are literally some of the hardest working people in Bluffton. They're out in the cold, the rain, they're out in the morning, and they're physically doing work and taking these oysters out of the river and bringing them here to the oyster factory. And they shuck the oysters by hand still. It's one of the last places on the East Coast where they still do all this manually. So speaking of manual labor and hard work, you came up with the idea of the flip stick. Yeah. I'm sure it wasn't all just straight to the top. What were some of those struggles that you had to go through to get this product launched?
So, you know, when I first launched, I think, you know, today we think, oh, just throw it on a Shopify store, a couple Facebook ads, and boom, you'll be a millionaire. That did not happen, okay? I launched a Kickstarter campaign and then no sales. And so I was like struggling to figure out, okay, how am I gonna move this product? I didn't really know anything about ads, I didn't know anything about social media or influencers or any of that, but I had worked in a retail store. So when I dropped out of college, I worked in cell phone retail sales. So I said, okay, if I can just get in front of people, I can sell this flip stick. And so the first thing I did, you talked about those big festivals that you guys have every year. I actually went to one of our big festivals in town. It was the Festival of Nations, where they have like 90 different countries, like 100,000 people come out, and they all are eating food. And I didn't even have money for the booth. So I just went there and I walked up to people and asked them, hey, have you heard of flip stick? And I think I made $100, okay? And so then I went the next day and I made like $150. And then I was like, okay, well, let me get a booth at a festival. And then I made like $300. And so then it was starting to get cold and the festivals were drying up. I think at most I made at a festival was maybe like $700 in a day. And so I was like, okay, how can I make this like an everyday thing? And so I was like, you know what? Maybe I should go to the mall. And it was November 2018. I was terrified to go to the mall because the rent at like one of those little kiosks was like $5,000. Like it was absolutely astronomically high. And I'm like, the mall's dying. Why is the rent $5,000? Yeah. And so my mom actually ended up going into the mall with me to sign the lease because I was so terrified of signing this lease. And the very first day in the mall was like November. I did $500 in sales. And then the next day I did $600. And the next day I did $700. And over the course of the next like 2 months leading into the holidays, I did $30,000 in sales.
Oh my gosh.
I was like,
so it's starting to work.
It's starting to work.
Yeah.
And so once like that happened, that's when I was like, all right, I think I want to apply to get on the Shark Tank. Like people are actually buying this product. They like it. I'm just selling these at the mall. Like if I can get some support and some funding, like we can really take off.
All right, well that's an awesome story. And when we get to the next stop, I'm gonna ask you about maybe getting into the Shark Tank thing. So let's head over there.
Let's do it.
All right. So Akeem, now we're on Hilton Head and we're right here at Coligny Beach. You've got the tiki hut over there. And a couple things I love about this beach, you've got like 7 miles of beaches here. You can ride bikes on this beach. During the summertime, this place is absolutely jam-packed with vacationers and everything. But I think one of the cool things about the beach is this is one of these places where people come and they just stare out.
I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
You look out at the vastness of the ocean and you contemplate life. Yeah. So that kind of leads me to my next question. During this journey of developing Flipstick, did you have any of those moments where you're staring out into the abyss and you're having sort of a gut check moment, like, oh my God, did I do the right thing? Or panicking?
It was all easy.
Yeah, it was all easy.
Man, I remember, like, this is one of those beaches where they're like, I like long walks on the beach. Like, this is one of those beaches you can see all the people are walking. So I remember I was walking, not on the beach, but on a sidewalk. I had applied to Shark Tank. I had gotten past 40,000 people. It was down to the final 200. They needed 120 left. And I remember I was walking my dog on the sidewalk, and I was expecting a phone call saying, hey, you're gonna be on Shark Tank, here's the dates, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm walking the dog, I'm on the sidewalk, I see the number, it says Beverly, it's the Beverly Hills, area code. And I pick it up and it's like, hey, this is so-and-so from Shark Tank. And she tells me, you're not gonna be on the show, we had to cut you. And I can remember, like, every time I walk past the square on the sidewalk, like, I remember the moment, my whole heart just dropped because I didn't have a backup plan. Like, my sales weren't doing great, I didn't know what to do next, and I was terrified. And I was depressed for like the next 2 days. But it was one of those things where it was like, all right, I got two choices. I can give up and say, hey, this was all for nothing, or I can figure out another way. And so I decided if I couldn't get a celebrity from Shark Tank to be one of my investors, I could find somebody else. And I just started going on a journey. I traveled all around the country from LA to Atlanta, went up to Detroit. I was all over at different events trying to figure out, okay, how can I get this thing going? And ultimately, I ended up at an event called the Revolt Summit, where I pitched my business in a rap, was able to get on stage.
A rap?
In a rap, yes. Okay. I was gonna pitch normally in the pitch competition, but it was closed and they were giving away a record deal. So I said, I did music appreciation. Why don't I just pitch my business in a rap? And while that probably won't pass any intro to business class in college, it worked. And they invited me to LA, and in LA I met Snoop Dogg, and then ultimately
The Snoop Dogg, D-O-double-G. And he ended up loving the product, and through just this crazy circumstance of events, I ended up on Shark Tank. Literally one of the casting directors for Shark Tank was part of the organization that had invited me to LA. He's hearing about this crazy story of this kid who rapped his way to get to LA, who sold his product to the group, and ultimately he called me and was like, hey, I'm gonna be in Kansas City in 2 days, I want you to come audition. And I got onto the show. All right, so would it be okay to have you give us a little sample of the rap?
Well, look, I gotta be honest, I didn't come here to rap.
Okay.
I came to talk about my business, as a matter of fact. Might start a feeding frenzy as I spit on this track, so I ask all the sharks, sit back and relax. Flipstick is the brand. If you already heard about it, raise your hand. It's a kickstand on demand with Flipstick. Gravity is under your command. Let me repeat for those who missed it. To any flat surface, your phone will stick. Get it wet, but the stickiness will persist. Tell you how I thought it up if time permits. Flipstick is the brand. If you already heard about it, raise your hand. It's a kickstand on demand with Flipstick. Gravity is under your command. In summary, I came to Shark Tank for a band, so I could put Flipstick in everybody's hands. Sharks, give the kid a chance. I'll deliver ROI on your 100 grand.
I love it, yes.
So that was the rap. It got me on Shark Tank, it got me a deal, and I think it's one of those things where we all have moments where we're on those long walks on the beach, we're ready to give up, things aren't working the way that we expected them to, and I think a lot of people at those low moments, they give up. They call it quits, cut their losses. But in my experiences, it's in those moments that if you just push through a little bit further, that's where the biggest, most incredible opportunities come from.
I love it. So Akeem, I wanted to bring you here. This is Harbour Town, and this is in Sea Pines on Hilton Head. And this is one of the most iconic spots in Hilton Head. And this is actually where they have the Heritage Golf Tournament every year. So big PGA golf tournament. Everybody comes in for it. This place is absolutely jam-packed. You got a couple of restaurants around here, but I brought you here because I have a personal story here. And this is a place that marked a major turning point in my personal life. About 25 years ago, this is where I met my wife. What? And yeah, I was actually working on one of these private yachts, and we were here for the golf tournament. And her girlfriends, I was all of about 22 years old and she was like 19. and her and all her girlfriends came walking down the dock at the golf tournament, and here we are 25 years later.
You're like, ooh, who is that?
Yeah, it was. But anyway, so that leads me into my next question, like the turning point for you. What was the turning point when you were like, I made it, this worked?
So I think like we had done Shark Tank and we're doing a lot better than I was doing prior to it. But I still, all my employees were, 1099 just workers.
Yeah.
I didn't have any management. And I had a great mentor who had built a really large toy business. And he said to me, he's like, Akeem, if you're gonna grow this business, you need to raise more capital. And he's like, you need to take a big swing. And I was like, all right. He ended up making a phone call and he got me with this group that could get me a meeting at Target.
Okay.
And they were like, all right, we're gonna go pitch it. We're gonna put together. You're gonna have to completely redesign your product. You're gonna have to buy all this inventory. And I started getting really nervous because they're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars that I don't have. And so my mentor's like, we're gonna set up a night. We're gonna get a whole bunch of people together. You're gonna pitch your business. You're gonna raise some money. And we ended up raising in that first round about $1.2 million.
Okay.
And we got Target to sign a contract, and I got the biggest check of my life from a sale when we launched in Target. And what was amazing was Target gave us so much support that we really didn't even deserve, that we hadn't earned. They put us initially in 300 stores. They gave us an end cap for free. Then they ended up putting us in all 1,800 stores just a couple months later. I mean, it was this amazing experience. And then from there, we got Best Buy, AT&T, and all these different stores because we got that one. And I remember when I walked into the store and I saw my product on the shelf in a store, and I'm like, oh my God, I really did it.
That is so cool.
And it was just one of those moments where it's like, you're sitting there and you're looking at it and I was freaking out. I'm like, I just can't believe this is here. And the person in the electronics department is like, oh yeah, can I help you with one of those? You want to buy one of those? It's like, no, I made that. And it was just like, the guy was like, what? I've never met someone that made something in this store.
Oh man.
And it was just like, wow, this is pretty special.
I love that.
So I think that for me was the turning point. It was like, oh, I made it for real.
I love it. Very cool. All right, so we just came across the bridge from Bluffton and Hilton Head. Now we're over on the Beaufort side. We're actually in a little area. This is called Port Royal, and it's its own little town, and it's actually one of the oldest towns on the East Coast.
Wow.
And so I figured we need to stop and eat. So I'm taking you to one of my favorite restaurants here. This is called Fishcamp.
Fishcamp.
And the reason we're here is the view. And this to me is one of the most incredible views over here in Beaufort. And hopefully we'll find something local on the menu that you like.
Some fresh seafood, that's what I'm here for.
All right, so let's head in and see what we get.
Let's go.
All right. All right, for our appetizer, we had to get some of the local oysters right out of the river. And I did ask you if you eat oysters, so.
Yes, and I do, and they look delicious.
So we have Shepherd's Point oysters, Single Lady oysters, and Port Royal Wilds. So which one are you gonna start with?
Let's see here, let's do a little.
Some oyster roulette.
Oyster roulette. It looks like Shepherd's Point.
All right.
Here. Get a little bit of lemon zest in here. I'm supposed to slurp it, right? That's the right way to do it. Oh, here, pull that off there. Get a little bit of that on there. Come here.
Some of the Lowcountry's finest here.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Oh, and it's already pre-shucked. All right, here we go.
Pretty good.
Delicious.
All right, I'm gonna go with the Single Lady oyster, and you can even see
that thing is huge.
A little bit of pluff mud on the outside, and I'll just add a little bit of horseradish to mine. And here we go.
Good.
Salty and so good. It tastes like river water. Tim, you want to try one behind the camera there?
I'm gonna try one, yeah.
All right, which one do you want here?
I'm gonna get this one here.
All right,
Port Royal Wilds.
let's go for it. Let's see how. You need the,
I appreciate
That was
it.
being
there you go.
Yeah, 'cause I need a little help.
All right, cameraman, what's your,
That's delicious. That's a
good
Lowcountry right
stuff.
there.
All right, cool. All right, we'll get back to you when our entrees come. All right, so the food just came and we both got some local stuff. I went with the Defusky crab cake sandwich. So for those of you that have been watching this channel, you know Defusky is an island right off of Hilton Head. There's no bridge to it. It's really cool. Check out my videos on Defusky Island. But it's made from blue crab, and the blue crab also comes right from the waterways out here. So I'm gonna give it a taste test.
Good.
That is so good, man. What did you get?
I got the fish of the day, which is the mahi, and I don't know, it looks pretty good. Let's see. Very good.
All right, well, we better eat
And
quick.
blackened.
We're gonna eat quick and then we're gonna jump right back into the video. We've got a couple more spots to show you, and I really want you to hear how his story ends because it's really awesome. So stay tuned, we're jumping right back into the video in just a few minutes. Do you want to know everything there is to know about the South Carolina Lowcountry, whether it's Bluffton, Beaufort, Hilton Head Island, or Jasper County? Then subscribe below and tap that bell for notifications so you'll know every time I put out a new video. My name is David Simcox, host of this channel and a local real estate agent. I get calls and emails every day from people just like you looking to make their move here, and I absolutely love it. So whether you're moving in 3 days, 3 months, or heck, even 3 years, give me a call, send me an email, shoot me a text, or you can always book a Zoom call by going to lowcountrylifestylesteam.com. Now, without further ado, let's jump right back into our video. We drove all the way out past Beaufort. We went all the way through St. Helena Island, which is pretty cool. It's one of the last places here on the East Coast. It's still like 90% plus Gullah Geechee community, and we talked a little bit about that. And we ended up here at Hunting Island State Park. Completely different vibe than Hilton Head. Hilton Head has lots of shops and dining and restaurants, but out here you feel like you're on a deserted island.
Yes, this feels like it is a rainforest. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable.
And as we came in the park, you got to see the maritime forest, and we drove through all those little windy roads and tons of palm trees and palmetto trees.
Yeah.
And you kind of liked it, right?
Stunning. I just can't believe like how tropical this is. And then you were telling me that this is where they film like the Vietnam scenes and Forrest Gump. Yeah. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
But actually what I really want to show you out here, because we are getting close to the end of this video, I wanted to show you right up here. And that right there is what Hunting Island is known for, and that is the Lighthouse. And the reason I left it to the end is because the Lighthouse was always kind of a beacon of hope to sailors out in the ocean to know, direct their course and tell them which way to go. Yeah. And so I thought I would kind of tie that in with the end of your story, getting towards the end of your story, at least where you're at right now. Now you're out of the business, you sold Flipstick, you made money, and now you're speaking on some of the biggest stages, talking to companies, organizations, business leaders, even going to schools and inspiring young people. So you're kind of this beacon of hope for future entrepreneurs and other business leaders. Tell me what that journey has looked like now that you've transitioned into this new phase of life.
It's been honestly incredible. I speak often about storytelling, how you can leverage storytelling to scale and grow your business. But for me, I always found the best speakers were the ones that like motivated me when I was ready to give up, when I was ready to quit. I recently was speaking at an organization, and this man came up to me afterwards. It was a pretty, typical, very business focused. But he comes up to me afterwards and he's bawling in tears. And he had listened to me share my journey, and he was telling me that they had an opening coming up within his organization. He had felt he was unqualified for it, but he had been in the organization for 20 years. And he's like, man, listen to you talk and your journey. He's like, I'm gonna apply for this director position, and I didn't think I should apply for it, but now that I've heard you, I'm gonna put my story together and pitch myself, and I'm gonna go do it. And he's doing this through tears, and I'm just like, he's at the company conference.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure he did not expect to experience that. He comes every year. That was not expected. And like, for me to inspire someone to chase after their passions, to chase after their dreams, to not give up when they otherwise could have, there's like no greater sense of satisfaction for me than being able to help people do that.
And maybe even create a spark in a young person's eye, you know?
So when we speaking about looking like we're on a deserted island, this past summer I got to go to the U.S. Virgin Islands with the Department of Labor and speak to about 2,000 young people who are all having their very first job.
I think I saw that on your YouTube channel.
Yes, and it was just, when I spoke to these kids, their passion and their dreams and their ideas. One young lady, it's a big tourist area, there's lots of hospitality. One young lady, she wanted to become an architect because her brother was disabled, and she wanted to make sure that there were resorts that were more accessible to people like her brother. And it was just like, it just fills you with such hope, and you want to inspire the kids because you want them to go do it and know that they can do it. And so, yeah, I've been very fortunate with the people that I get to talk to, you know, the people that I get to inspire, and I just hope to be able to continue to do it.
That's awesome. Well, I've got one more spot to show you on our tour of the Lowcountry. And at the end of the video, I do want to get your takeaway though and see what you thought of the tour in the Lowcountry and your first exposure here. So you ready to head to our last spot?
Let's do it.
All right, let's go.
It's a hard place to leave though. I mean,
I know. You said this was your favorite spot.
This is my favorite. I'm a big nature guy. I love just being amongst, you know, the fresh air and the fauna. And so this for me this is hard to beat. And then the lighthouse is so historic, and it's black and white amongst all the green. It's beautiful.
All right, this is the last spot I wanted to take you just to wrap things up. We're here on Bay Street in downtown Beaufort. This is kind of the main shopping and dining district in this historic little town. And these are a lot of small business owners, but they have big dreams. So that kind of leads me to my last question. If you're looking at, you know, these entrepreneurs or even people thinking about just taking a risk and making a change in life, you know, maybe even moving to the South Carolina Lowcountry from New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, California, anyone looking at taking a big leap in life or a big risk, what is your advice to them?
I mean, I think for me, I've always been like, I accept risk. You know, I think that when you have a dream or you have a passion, you have a feeling like it's time for you to do something different, you're ready for a different season in your life, sometimes you just gotta go for it. And you're not gonna have all the answers, you're not gonna know everything up front, but if you take one small step and it feels like, okay, this feels pretty good, then just take another and take another and take another, and ultimately all those little steps end up looking a lot like a giant leap. So I say go for it. I'm a big believer in going and chasing after your dreams, going and taking those chances and seeing where it finds you, because the worst thing that can happen in life is that you die with regrets. The what if. What if I had gone? What if I had moved? What if I had grown the business? What if I had to open up a second location? And you don't want to end your life wondering what if, so just go for it.
Yeah. All right. So after spending, you know, a full day with me, I took you to all my favorite hot spots.
We've been all over.
We went to Bluffton, we went to Hilton Head, we went to Beaufort, we went all the way out to Hunting Island. What's your takeaway about the Lowcountry after your first impression here?
Yeah, honestly, my takeaway, this area is far more beautiful than I ever could imagine. Like, I guess, you know, the palmetto tree is on the state flag, but maybe I wasn't paying attention in 4th grade because I didn't realize like how tropical the Lowcountry was. It's so beautiful. It feels like I'm in an oasis almost, like within America. And I've been very thoroughly surprised and delighted to be here. I'm so glad you took me around, and I can't wait to come back.
What was your favorite spot?
Oh, by far my favorite spot was the state park, which is
Hunting Island.
Hunting Island. That literally, I felt like, you talk about being filmed to look like Vietnam. I felt like I was in this tropical setting. You know, what is it called? The Coastal forest?
Yeah, a maritime forest.
Maritime forest. I've never heard of that before, but that's my jam. I'm like, I want to go back. I want to go camping on the beach bonfires. I loved it.
It was such a pleasure spending time with you today.
Thank you.
And of course, for you watching, if we can help you find your own low country lifestyle, give us a call, send us an email, shoot us a text, or you can always book a Zoom call by going to lowcountrylifestylesteam.com. And we hope to meet you in person at some point, but if not, we'll at least see you on the next video.
Peace.